Slavery is a word heavy with pain. It means one human being owns another. The enslaved person is treated like property, a tool to be used. They have no freedom to choose their life, their work, or their future. Their bodies and their labor belong to someone else. This cruel system is not new. It has existed in many places, across many different times. It is a dark thread woven through much of human history, a testament to humanity's capacity for inhumanity. The denial of basic human dignity is its core. The origins of slavery stretch far back into ancient civilizations. In places like Mesopotamia and Egypt, people became slaves in various ways. Some were captured in wars, others fell into debt and were forced into servitude. Sometimes, children were born into slavery because their parents were enslaved. Power was the key. Stronger groups or individuals forced weaker ones into bondage. This wasn't about race, not yet. It was often about conquest, bad luck, or social hierarchy. Ancient laws often recognized slavery, codifying the rights of owners over their human property, however limited. Life for a slave in the ancient world could vary. Some performed hard manual labor in fields or mines. Others might have been household servants or even skilled artisans or administrators. However, no matter their specific role, they were not free. Their existence was subject to the whims and demands of their masters. The threat of punishment was constant. The possibility of being sold away from family was a grim reality. Even if some slaves achieved positions of relative comfort, the fundamental injustice of their stolen liberty remained unchanged, a constant reminder of their subjugated status. This ancient acceptance of slavery, however brutal, laid a dangerous groundwork. It normalized the idea that one person could own another. It established systems and justifications for forced labor. While these early forms of slavery were different from the large-scale, race-based chattel slavery that would emerge later, they planted a bitter seed. This seed would grow into a much larger, more monstrous tree in the centuries to come. The concept of human beings as commodities was thus tragically introduced into the human story, setting a precedent for future exploitation on an even grander scale. The transatlantic slave trade marked a terrifying new chapter in this history. Beginning in the 15th century, European nations, starting with Portugal, began capturing and buying African people. They forced them onto ships and transported them across the Atlantic Ocean to the Americas. This was different. It became an enormous, organized system built on racist ideas. Millions of Africans were kidnapped from their homes and communities. This system was vast, industrial in its cold efficiency, and driven by an insatiable greed for profit. The scale of this human trafficking was unprecedented, forever staining the ocean that bore its name. The journey itself, known as the Middle Passage, was a nightmare of unimaginable horror. Men, women, and children were packed tightly into the dark, filthy holds of ships. They were chained, often barely able to move for weeks or months. Disease spread rapidly in these cramped, unsanitary conditions. Many died from sickness, starvation, or brutal treatment by the crew. The air was filled with the sounds of suffering. It was a journey designed to break the human spirit, to strip individuals of their identity and dignity before they even reached the shores where further exploitation awaited them. In the Americas, North America, South America, and the Caribbean islands, enslaved Africans were forced to work. They toiled on massive plantations, growing crops like sugar, tobacco, cotton, and coffee. This labor was back-breaking and relentless, from sunrise to sunset, often under the threat of the whip. The profits from these crops made European empires and American colonists incredibly wealthy. This wealth built cities, funded industries, and shaped economies on both sides of the Atlantic. The entire system was designed to extract maximum labor for minimum cost, with human lives being the disposable resource. The impact on Africa was devastating. Entire communities were torn apart, families were destroyed, millions of the continent's strongest and brightest people were stolen, their potential lost forever. The trade fueled wars and instability between African kingdoms and groups, as some participated in capturing others to sell to European traders. This created deep wounds and long-lasting divisions. The loss of so many people halted development and progress in many regions, leaving a legacy of economic and social disruption that would persist for generations, a profound demographic and cultural catastrophe. Despite the power and profits behind slavery, opposition slowly began to grow. People started to question the morality of owning another human being. This became the abolitionist movement. It was made up of many different kinds of people. Some were driven by their religious beliefs, seeing slavery as a sin against God. Others were moved by humanitarian concerns, horrified by the cruelty and injustice. Enslaved people themselves, through constant resistance, were the most powerful force for change. This movement was not a single unified entity, but a chorus of brave voices rising against an entrenched evil. Many courageous individuals became leaders in this fight. Formerly enslaved people like Frederick Douglass in America, an eloquent orator and writer, shared his powerful story and condemned slavery's evils. Harriet Tubman, known as Moses, risked her life countless times to lead hundreds of enslaved people to freedom through the Underground Railroad. White abolitionists, such as William Lloyd Garrison, who published the anti-slavery newspaper The Liberator, also played crucial roles by raising awareness and agitating for political change. Their combined efforts, often met with violence and ridicule, chipped away at the foundations of the slave system. The path to ending slavery was long and often violent. Enslaved people resisted in many ways, from slowing down work and preserving their cultural traditions to outright rebellion. Revolts like Nat Turner's rebellion in Virginia in 1831 sent shockwaves through slaveholding societies, even though they were brutally suppressed. Abolitionists used petitions, speeches, and political organizing to pressure governments. Legal battles were fought, and newspapers published harrowing accounts of slavery's realities. Those who profited from slavery, however, resisted these efforts fiercely, leading to deep divisions and, in some cases, open conflict. Eventually, the tide began to turn. The British Empire abolished slavery throughout its colonies in 1833 after decades of campaigning. In the United States, the issue of slavery was a major cause of the Civil War from 1861 to 1865. The Union victory led to the 13th Amendment to the Constitution in 1865, which formally abolished slavery. Other nations in the Americas followed suit throughout the 19th century. These were monumental victories for human freedom, yet the end of legal slavery did not mean the end of racial discrimination or the struggle for true equality for formerly enslaved people and their descendants. The institution of slavery did not simply vanish without a trace. It profoundly shaped the modern world in ways we still see and feel today. The immense wealth accumulated through centuries of unpaid slave labor laid economic foundations for many Western nations and powerful families. Conversely, it created deep-seated economic disadvantages for people of African descent. These disparities in wealth, land ownership, and opportunity can often be traced back to the era of slavery. The economic systems built on exploitation left a lasting imbalance that continues to affect societies globally. Beyond the economic, slavery left deep social and cultural scars. The racist ideologies developed to justify the brutal enslavement of African people. Ideas that portrayed them as inferior did not disappear with abolition. These toxic beliefs mutated and persisted, fueling segregation, discrimination, and systemic racism that continue to plague societies. The fight for civil rights in the 20th century and ongoing struggles for racial justice are direct consequences of slavery's long shadow. These deeply ingrained prejudices have proven incredibly difficult to eradicate from social structures and individual mindsets. It is crucial to remember the human aspect of this history, not just the economic or political facts. We must remember the resilience and strength of enslaved people. They resisted their dehumanization in countless ways. They preserved elements of their African cultures, created new forms of music and storytelling, and formed communities and families under the most oppressive conditions. They fought for their freedom and dignity with unwavering courage. Their stories are testaments to the enduring power of the human spirit in the face of unimaginable cruelty and sustained oppression. Remembering the history of slavery is not about assigning blame for the past. It is about understanding how the past has shaped our present. It teaches us vital lessons about power, greed, and the horrific consequences of dehumanizing others. It helps us recognize and challenge modern forms of exploitation and injustice that still exist. By confronting this dark chapter of human history honestly, we can work towards a more just and equitable future for everyone. The echoes of those chains demand our attention, compelling us to build a world where such atrocities are never repeated.